two players walk onto the same patch of German grass this week carrying trophies from the last 7 days. And one of those trophies makes absolutely no sense. Donna Vekić was not supposed to be in the Queen's Club draw. She was not supposed to beat 5 opponents without dropping a set until the final. She was definitely not supposed to bagel Emma Raducanu in a WTA 500 championship match on English grass in front of a partisan London crowd. And yet she did all of that starting from the qualifying rounds as a lucky loser. And now she arrives in Berlin as the hottest player on the women's tour. Alex Eala also arrives in Berlin carrying hardware. A Birmingham Open title won 8 days ago in a gutsy 3-set final over Nicola Bartonova. But between Birmingham and now, Eala absorbed a 6-2-6-2 demolition at the hands of Iva Jovic at that same Queen's Club where Vekić was busy making her miracle run. So, the draw has handed us a first-round collision between two world number 33s, two recent champions, two women who already know each other very well, and two completely contradictory momentum stories. Eala leads the head-to-head 2-0. Vekic has never beaten her, and somehow Vekic might still be the favorite. Let me walk you through why this matchup is so much more complicated than a ranking number or a head-to-head record can capture. Start with what happened at Queen's because it redefines as both players heading into Berlin. Vekić entered the HSBC Championships as a lucky loser. That distinction matters. She lost in qualifying, packed her bags, and then Marta Kostuk withdrew injured and Beck received the phone call every fringe player dreads and dreams about in equal measure. She was back in from there. She beat Mika Stade Seville in the first round. Then Marie Buskova then pulled off a 3-set win over Carolina in the quarterfinals, dismantled Katie Bolter 6-1, 6-3 in the semis, and in the final played a first set against Raducanu that was as close to clinical perfection as you will see on grass this season. 6 in under 30 minutes. Raducanu fought back in the second, pushed Vekić to a tiebreak, saved 4 championship points, but ultimately lost 8-6 in the breaker. That is 5 matches, 5 wins, and a WTA 500 title for a woman who started the year ranked outside the top 90 and fell out of the top 100 entirely in February. You have to put Vekic's season in context to understand how radical this Queen's run actually is. She began 2026 poorly. Her ranking cratered to 81 point. She was sitting at world number 95, the lowest she had been in 4 years. The early hard court results were sparse. She struggled through qualifying draws. She picked up a Charleston green clay win that felt like a footnote. Nothing about her season until Queen suggested that she was about to rip through a WA 500 field on grass like a player possessed. But then grass has always been Becca's private revelation. Her 2024 Wimbledon semi-final was not a fluke. She reached the final in Bad Hamburg right before it. She won Nottingham back in 2017. She has a game built for low bouncing courts, a big flat serve, penetrating ground strokes off both wings, a willingness to take the ball early and move forward. When Vekić is hitting well on grass, her ball stays low and skids through the court in a way that rushes opponents into uncomfortable contact points. She does not need to do anything exotic on this surface. She just needs her timing to be right. And right now, after 5 consecutive wins on grass, her timing is locked in. Now place a next to that. Eala's Birmingham title was genuinely impressive. She beat Priscilla Hahn, Alina Kuriva after trailing 2-5 in the second set. Mananka Sweni, Rebecca Mazarova, and then Baranova in a final that featured rain delays, a lost first set, and a third set where she got broken back to 5-5, and then broke again at 6-5 to close. That is resilience. That is a player who can grind through discomfort and find solutions under duress. Her grass court record stands at 15-8 for her career, a solid 65% winning rate, and that number has been climbing. She is comfortable on the surface. She moves well. Her return game is elite, and she has figured out how to use the low bounce to flatten her forehand and take time away from opponents. But then came Queen's. Eala beat Yung Shui 6-3, 6-2 in the opening round, and looked entirely comfortable. Then she ran into Jovic and Jovic absolutely destroyed her. 6-2, 6-2 in 77 minutes. It was not close. Jovic, who is ranked 19 in the world and is a far more powerful ball striker than Eala, served well, returned well, and took the racket out of Eala's hands for most of the match. The question that hangs over Eala in Berlin is whether that Jovic loss was a blip caused by fatigue after Birmingham or whether it exposed a ceiling that Vekic can now exploit. Here is where the head-to-head gets interesting. Eala has beaten Vekic twice and both times tell a real story. In Auckland in January, Vekic won the first set and appeared to be in control. Eala was not serving well. Her first serve percentage was shaky. Vekic's power was pushing Eala behind the baseline and the Croatian was dictating the geometry of rallies. Then Eala adjusted. She started standing closer to the baseline on return. She began redirecting Vekic's pace rather than trying to generate her own. She turned the match into a puzzle instead of a slugfest and Vekic did not solve it. Eala won in 3 sets after 2 hours and 40 minutes. That was on hard court in Auckland. 2 weeks later at the Kwong Classic in Melbourne, Eala won again, this time more comfortably, 6-3, 6-4. Vekic was never able to establish the baseline control she had briefly held in Auckland. Eala's return game was disruptive from the first point, and she made Vekic play 1 extra ball on nearly every service game. When you force Vekic to hit 5 or 6 shots to hold serve instead of 2 or 3, her error rate climbs. That was the pattern in both matches. Eala's return game suffocated Vekic's ability to dictate. So, what changes on grass in Berlin? Everything potentially. Both previous meetings happened on hard courts. Hard courts are Eala's preferred surface. The ball sits up, gives her time, and allows her return game to function at maximum efficiency because she can read the serve, split step, and redirect with precision. Grass takes time away from everyone, but it takes more time away from returners than from servers. The ball skids lower. The bounce is less predictable. Serves that would be readable on hard court become much harder to neutralize when the surface keeps the ball down and accelerates it through the strike zone. This matters enormously for how the match plays out because Vekic's serve is a genuine weapon on grass. She can hit spots. She can vary between a flat bomb down the tee and a slider out wide. At Queen's, her serve was functioning at a level we have not seen consistently from her in years. If that serve shows up in Berlin, Eala's return game faces a drastically harder task than it did in Auckland or Melbourne. But the serve is only half the equation. Vekic also benefits from grass because her flat ground strokes, which can spray long or wide on slower surfaces when she overhits, become much more effective when the ball stays low. The margin for error is actually more forgiving for a flat hitter on grass than on clay or even slow hard courts because the trajectory stays compressed. Vekic hits through the ball. On grass, that is a virtue. On clay, it is a liability. On hard courts, it is somewhere in between. Berlin's grass pushes Vek toward her best version of herself. Eala, on the other hand, has to adjust her game on grass in ways that do not come naturally. She is a left-hander who generates top spin on her forehand and uses angles to move opponents around the court. On grass, top spin does not bite the way it does on clay or even on hard court. The ball slides through rather than kicking up. That means Eala's forehand, which is her primary weapon, loses some of its geometric potency. She compensates by flattening out and taking the ball earlier. And at Birmingham, she did this well. But against Vekic, who hits harder and bigger than anyone Eala faced in Birmingham, the margin for executing that compensation shrinks. There is also the physical dimension. Eala has played a lot of tennis in the past 10 days. She went deep in Birmingham, played a 3-set final, then immediately traveled to London for Queen's, played a match, lost to Jovic, and now has to travel to Berlin and play again. Vek, by contrast, played 5 matches at Queen's, but won the title. There is a psychological energy that comes from winning that is different from the drain of losing. Vekic will be physically tired. Absolutely. She played more tennis than Eala over the past week, but she will arrive in Berlin riding the confidence of the best week of her 2026 season. Eala will arrive carrying the confusion of a Birmingham high followed by a Queen's low. Let me talk about what Eala needs to do tactically to win this match because it is not impossible. Far from it. She has beaten Vekic twice and the blueprint exists even if the surface changes. The key for her has always been disruption. She does not try to out-hit Beck. She tries to outthink her. She takes pace off the ball at unexpected moments. She changes direction. She draws Beck into longer rallies where the Croatian's impatience becomes a factor. Beck, for all her shot-making talent, has a tendency to go for too much when she feels a rally dragging on. She would rather hit a winner and miss than play the 12th ball of a point. Eala exploits that impulse by making Vekic play the 8th, 9th, 10th ball, trusting that somewhere in that sequence Vekic will over it. On grass, this strategy is harder to execute, but not impossible. The rallies are naturally shorter, which reduces Eala's opportunities to extend points. But if Eala can return well enough to neutralize Vekic's serve and get into rallies, she can still work the same pattern. The danger is that on grass, Vekic might not need the 8th ball. She might hit a clean winner on the 3rd. The surface empowers aggression and Vekic is the more aggressive player. The other tactical wrinkle involves Eala's serve, which remains the weakest part of her game. She does not generate big pace. She relies on placement and variation. On grass, a weak serve is more punishable because the returner can take the ball early and seize immediate control of the point. Vekic is a strong returner when she is locked in, and if Eala's serve gives her short balls to attack, the Filipino will find herself defending from the first shot of her own service games. But I keep coming back to something that numbers cannot fully explain. Eala has beaten Vekic twice. Not once, which could be a fluke. Twice in different cities, in different conditions, at different points in the season. There is something about the matchup that Eala understands. Maybe it is the rhythm. Maybe it is the way Vekic's flat ball sits in Eala's strike zone better than other opponents' spin. Maybe it is psychological, a comfort level that comes from knowing you have solved someone before. Whatever it is, it showed up in Auckland when Eala was down a set and found a way. And it showed up in Melbourne when Eala never let Vekic settle into her game. The counter-argument is simple. Beck at Queen's was a different player than Vekic at Auckland or Kwong. She was serving better, moving better, and competing with a ferocity that comes from a player who has been humbled by months of bad results and has found something in herself on grass that she could not locate on hard courts. The Vekic who bageled Emma Raducanu in a WT 500 final is not the same Vekic who let Eala climb back from a set down in Auckland. That Vekic was tentative in the 2nd and 3rd sets, unsure of her direction when things got tight. The Queen's Club Vekic was decisive, ruthless, and unbothered by pressure. There is one more factor worth mentioning. The winner of this match likely faces Elena Rykina, the 2nd seed, in the round of 16. Rykina has a bye in the first round and will be waiting. That knowledge could subtly affect how both players approach this match. On one hand, it raises the stakes of winning because a second-round meeting with one of the most dangerous grass court players on tour is a significant opportunity. On the other hand, it might create a sense of urgency that leads to pressing, particularly for who might feel that this is a winnable first round followed by an unwinnable second one and therefore grip the racket tighter than she should. So, can Eala beat Vekic in Berlin? Yes, she has done it before. She knows the matchup. Her return game remains dangerous on any surface. She has the tactical intelligence to construct points that make Vekic uncomfortable. But will she? That is the harder question. Vekic just won a WTA 500 title on this exact surface. Her confidence is at a level Eala has never previously faced across the net. The grass reduces Eala's time on the return and amplifies Beck's power on serve. And Eala is managing the physical and psychological hangover of a Birmingham title run followed by a Queen's Club humbling all compressed into a 10-day window. My honest read is that this match comes down to the first 3 games of the second set. The first set will be tight regardless of who wins it. Both players will be feeling out the conditions, adjusting to Berlin's grass, figuring out the pace and the bounce. If Vekic wins the first set and then breaks early in the second, she will run away with this. Her confidence from Queens will compound and Eala will not have the runway to mount another Auckland-style comeback on a surface this fast. But if Eala takes the first set or loses it closely and then breaks early in the second, the old head-to-head patterns reassert themselves. Vekic starts pressing. Vekic starts going for too much. Vekic starts remembering Auckland and Kwong instead of Queen's Club, and doubt creeps in at the margins of her game. Vekic is the slight favorite. The surface, the form, the fresh title, the serving confidence, and the physical freshness relative to Eala's compressed schedule all point her way. But a slight favorite against someone who has beaten you twice is not a comfortable position. Eala has the blueprint. The question is whether Berlin's grass lets her use it. And the answer to that will depend on something no one can predict from the outside, which walks onto that court. The Birmingham champion, calm and resourceful and clutch, or the Queen's Club version, flat and outgunned and a step behind. Only one of them gives Vekic a match. The other gives her a walk.